But anyways, we'll don't want to make this video go too long, so we'll move on to the pitchers here and start to speed up a little bit. It's always fun talking about these prospects. I probably get rambling a little bit too much. I just searched Valdez, but there's about 87 Valdez's in this game, so I'm going to go a little more specific. Hector Valdez I have as the #1 pitching prospect in baseball under the age of 21. Do you have pretty crazy ratings on him too, or is my scout just happy-go-lucky with him?
No, he looks like he throws gas, and he has four elite pitches, with the fastball, sinker, slider, splitter, changeup is whatever. But when you have the other 4 pitches, like 40 changeup's not going to kill you. Right now, it looks like his stuff is 60 out of 70, movement 45-50, and then control 40-65. So he looks like a complete ace to me, especially if you get him with the right catcher or defense behind him. I think he could put up some monster numbers where he just strikes out a lot of guys and then keeps it in the ballpark with a good defense.
Yeah, I'm just looking. I had this guy on my list, and I hadn't even paid that close attention to his stats. That's one of the best A-ball pitching stats I've ever seen. The guy had 29 starts in A-ball and won 18 games. The guy had a 35% strikeout rate, and he had 4.2 WAR in a single minor league system as a pitcher. I hardly ever see pitchers over 2 or 3 WAR. So that age at A-ball having 4.2 WAR, what a monster season. 101 miles an hour with that kind of stuff. So really, if you look at his profile, he's almost got the same ratings. I'll pull up another screen here. Tanner Witt, pretty much the exact same profile. Both have like 65, 70 type stuff. Both have that medium 50 movement. And then the difference is that guy has 4 pitches, where Tanner Witt's more of a 3-pitch guy. So it just shows how insane the high ceiling this guy is. I can't wait to see.
I love the size he has. He's 6'6", and if he has a dominant year in AA, I would be tempted to just go him straight to the majors and skip AAA. It really depends. I do like seeing that he's starting next year in AA. I think he could be up sooner than later. He looks, especially with my piss poor staff, he definitely looks like he could slot in over some of my pitchers.
Yeah, well, especially the 65 current stuff I have on him, that'd be like a 75, almost an 80 reliever right now. So I agree. I think he could throw him up, especially in like a relief role when he's young, maybe, and work his way into a starter as he gets his control more under wraps there. But what a crazy talent that dude is. Scouting discovery again. What a monster.
Yeah.
I think he was a TCR guy, must have been. Let's see here. Yeah, he had a sinker back in 2023. Oh, that's why. The dude had 2 TCRs, if you look at his development history. I'm pretty sure, let's count this. I have not had a red arrow in the last 20 green arrows. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus about 8, so that's 14. So yeah, I have about 30 plus development things in a row since he ever had a negative rating development back in 2022. The guy added a sinker in 2023, and then 2024 he had a splitter. So if you go back to his pitches, the sinker that he added is now a 60 current, and the splitter is a 60 with 70 potential. So yeah, that guy was like a 2-pitch reliever that added 2 more pitchers. So that makes sense why. It just shows how crazy some of those development paths can be from those young guys. 2 TCRs. You know how rare that is? Holy smokes.
Yeah. No, he's a special one to watch for sure.
Next up, I have another NL West guy. Seems like there's quite a bit of NL West guys on this 2 lists, which is pretty intense because that's already like the best division in baseball pretty much. We got Josh Shortcut Allen. Love the nickname. Love the full name. There's great Josh Allens in the NFL, a couple of them. What do you think about this guy? I have a 75 control potential on him. Do you have the same kind of ratings on him, or your scout not quite as high as mine?
My scout's not quite as high, but he's 70 control, so it's apples and oranges. It's still really elite control with potential above elite stuff. And then the movement's not great, but he's in a ballpark like San Francisco, so I think that's the perfect place for him. Like especially if he can keep it on the ground. It looks like he has 4 really good pitches. I'm not going to be a big fan of him if his name's Josh Allen and he's on the Giants. That's 2 biases against him, so hopefully he throws out his arm and flames out.
Yeah, I don't know if that'll happen anytime soon with how advanced that profile is. What a monster. I got 35-60 stuff on him at the age of 20. Dude had a .9 whip in rookie ball, throwing absolute gas down there. Guy's hitting 180 off him. So this guy's someone to keep an eye out, and I think he's definitely ready for A-ball. He might turn into one of the better prospects in baseball in the next couple of years. But as you probably don't want to hear that as a Giant, like you just said, we'll move on. All right, so we got Bob Lozano next on this list. Bob Lozano, or no, sorry, did I just say that wrong? Okay, so Bob Lozano is on St. Louis. Where is he here? Mm-hmm. There he is, number 2.
Lozano's right, yeah.
I got Lozano up so high. I know he has kind of weak hold and not a great fastball, but the secondary pitches I have are so good on him, and the hold's a little low. But I have him up here because the movement is so high. The guy's 20 years old. I got extreme ground ball with 55 current movement. So this guy's just a guy that has some major stuff. 3 really nice pitches combinations. I like the fastball, sinker, slider as like a ground ball guy. A lot of stuff that kind of goes down, and just such high stuff potential. Control is not quite as high as some of these other guys in this list, but I just thought the lack of home runs he's going to let up, especially in that ballpark, could make him a really valuable player in a few years, especially for St. Louis. Nice fit.
Yeah, he definitely looks pretty advanced on my end. The control, I don't think. I mean, yeah, it sucks, but like I think you can work around it sometimes with the right catcher and restrictions, where it doesn't always turn me off too much. And he has potential to be above average control, so I'm not too worried about that long term for him. What's your personal opinion on hold runners? Because I'll be honest, like that's one stat I probably should pay more attention to, but I don't, because I also feel like a lot of teams don't really run. So I'll be like, all right, if I'm facing the Royals, I'm fucked. But other than that, like I'll take my chances.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if you're a good catcher with high and a high arm. I think 25 is a little scary to me sometimes. Like I know it's one thing if you have. I have a couple guys with 40, right? Like in my starting staff, and they only let up about 15 stolen base a year. That's why I actually added that in there in my views. I got stolen base. You can see under the pitching ratings here. I pretty much noticed if they have about a 50, they let up like 5 to 7 or 5 to 10 stolen base a year in like 150 innings, like a starter. If they have about a 25, that number jumps from about 10 to 15, or sorry, 5 to 10 stolen base a year to about 30. So a good example of that, I'll pull up Thor on my screen. So it pretty much essentially Thor lets up like 22, 23, 20 this season, stolen bases a season. If you look at Thor in real life, he let 48 stolen bases in 2016. I had never noticed that before. That is gross. But in TLG, Thor has pretty much been between. This is Thor's stolen bases per season from 21 on at like 25 hold. I got 18, 19, 27, 22, and 23. So always right around 20 stolen bases a season. So that essentially you're just turning like with that low hold. I figure statistically, with those stats, kind of says you're turning maybe like 10 singles a year into doubles. So that's not the end of the world. It is when it comes to if you get like a fast guy, all of a sudden it's like a free second base, and then he just scores on a single. It can kind of hurt you, but it's also not like I don't even think that would be like cost you even maybe like one game a season. It's hard to say exactly. It could, like you mentioned, against the right team like KC. You have a playoff game and it's just like, oh, team like KC matched up or something, or like those old Trey Turner and Robles Washington teams in early TLG. Those guys both got 50 stolen base a year. If you have to match up like that, it kind of hurts you. But you can also mess with the guys' ratings if you go into action and you go into like set game strategy. You can turn their like hold way up so they focus on it more. So there's a couple things you can do to counteract it. But yeah, it was kind of a long-winded answer, but I really don't think it's like anywhere close to the value of me of like the main categories like stuff, movement, and control, but something that can be, if all things considered in the draft, two guys are really similar rated, I will take the guy with a higher hold if it's like kind of a tiebreaker there.
That's interesting. And then I have one last question that your last point kind of made me think of is like, so when you have a pitcher focus more on the hold, does that affect their pitching to the plate since they're like more thinking about that, or is that too deep into the game?
I don't know either. I've wondered that too, because I just started messing with the individual strategies more, like turning up the pitch around for the low movement guys. And when I pay like a high power team, I'll do that. But I was wondering the same thing because I can't see a negative. Like I've just been jacking it up for all those guys like 35 hold. I'm like, oh, it probably just means they're throwing over first base and slowing the game, pissing the fans off more. But in actual, yeah, like as a ratings wise, I wonder if it does kind of affect. Maybe they're too focused on the runner. That's a really good question. That's one of those kind of hidden things that I've never seen someone explain out of the park. But I think there's maybe something to that. But I don't have any proof or don't know of any way to kind of find proof on that. It's a good question. All right, next up, what do we got here? Next up, we have Casey Royal. We've been talking about them quite a bit. Only showed one of their players so far, the shortstop. I have Chris Perez on this list next. He stood out to me with his unbelievable fastball and 6'7" frame. What can you tell me about Chris Perez?
So I like him a lot. I kind of like him as like maybe like a stopper or like a reliever. I think he could be a very good pitcher starting too, but I think he could become a dominant, really important multi-inning pitcher with his ratings, because I imagine if you turn him to reliever, his stuff will go up to 70, maybe 70, 75. You get those 3 pitches that could be nasty. I think he could do a lot of damage out of the bullpen for the Royals. So, I mean, and especially coming from 6'7", I love everything about it, the speed. That's where I would go with him personally. The movement worries me a little bit, but I'll take the stuff and control and just hope for the best, and just know every once in a while he's going to give up a home run that'll like break your back.
Yeah, another guy. See, that's the interesting thing. Like you just talked about the hold rating. This guy has a 45 hold rating, but he actually left 23 stolen bases this year. So it's kind of random. I don't know if that hold rating improved a lot at the end of the year. It started the year lower, but kind of one thing I just noticed while you're talking there. Yeah, I agree with the whole like the 75 fastball just makes him such a weapon in the bullpen. But either or, yeah, wherever you pitch this guy, starter reliever is gonna be nasty with that crazy strikeout rate. Over the top power pitcher with a sinker. So the guy's just gonna get so much movement on that sinker. Just a really devastating, intimidating guy to go against. Absolutely love that dude. If he can get that slider a little better, it's lagging after those top three pitches a little bit. This guy's gonna be real nice for KC in a couple years. I think they got a lot of young talent that I can't wait to see the future for KC. They're a small budget team. It's kind of cool when they build into their windows there a little bit. And a lot of those prospects are similar ages. One last thing before I move on, I look at his recent performances. You see that 8 innings, 0 runs, 11 strikeout performance he had near the end of the year. It's pretty
I did not see that. That's pretty nice. No, Drew's done a fantastic job with Kansas City. He was not dealt the best deck of the cards, and I'm really impressed what he's done.
Yeah, nice little squad. So next up, I have a Boston Red Sox. Another Boston Red Sox on this list. Tyler's done a really good job of getting some talent. He had that really talented third baseman in the position of players. Now as a pitcher, we got another really beastly talent. I don't know. This is a guy I could see different scouts having way different opinions on. I just have a really crazy. Do you have the 280 potential changeups on him, or is your scout got quite a different opinion on him? I have a real big finesse profile on him.
So yeah, I have a changeup 50 out of 75. So it's already really developed. That's a huge plus right there. And then his circle change is 35-80, and that has a pretty good chance with that rating to be developed too. So yeah, he looks like he could just be some nasty, kind of and 70 stuff too. So yeah, he is and the high work ethic. Yeah, I didn't really know about this guy until going into this list, but I'm very impressed by what I'm seeing right now. And he's young enough too, where he could, if he gains like an extra few miles per hour, then like we're really cooking with something. Yeah, I love his profile right now.
Yeah, while you're talking there, I just realized I was on my OSA ratings. I don't know if I flip-flop back and forth. I've been the whole video on the OSA. It doesn't really matter.
No.
I pretty much same profile for a lot of these guys on both. But yeah, I also have the 80 and the 75 changeup. That's so cool. I don't know if I've ever seen a guy with like 280 changeups like that. It's just so weird to me that have two such similar pitches with such high ratings. If you look at his development report, it looks like he got that circle change back in 2024, and back when he had that TCR, he only threw 86 mile an hour. So he's gone up 4 miles an hour, and to get a TCR pitch that's an 80 is pretty friggin' special. It's not like it was like a 35-50 or something. The dude gets an 80 potential TCR pitch. So that guy is so strange because if you look at his stats this year, he got smoked in A-ball. He doesn't live up to his potential at all on the field. He's got like a 5 FIP, 1.7 whip, only struck out like 9% of batters, which is like scary low. It's about half what it should be. It's just so weird. But the ratings wise, my scout just absolutely loves him. Has crazy development reports on him. Every year he's gone up like 5 in each category for the last couple seasons here. So still only 20 years old, has a long way to go. Should be.
And pitching's
good.
Oh, sorry. Pitching's kind of weird too. Like I don't always go by the stats. Like sometimes I just go by the ratings and then call them up, and then one day it clicks for them. So I don't know. It also looks like he's kind of pissed off at a lot of things. So maybe if he, especially his role in the team, so maybe if he gets bumped up, you might start seeing a more motivated pitcher. But he looks really developed on my end. So he's a very impressive arm for Boston.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you said. And I'll pull up a good example on my screen. Cruz Newman for Cincinnati, one of the best hitters in the game now. The example you said of like a guy not performing up to his ratings in the minors, but then all of a sudden like the ratings kind of hold true as they get older. Cruz Newman is a perfect example. If you look at his minor league history here, Cruz Newman had a crazy TCR when he was young. He literally hit like 130, 150, 190 for like 3 full years in the minors. He had these crazy like 70 potential contact and power ratings, and he just was getting like negative 1.5, -1 more seasons all over the place. He wasn't like even an average major or minor league hitter until he was 20 years old, like 3 years into his career. He's finally getting like positive WAR, and he's still striking out 30% of the time in A-ball. So that guy's ratings finally started to live up to it. Still never even hit double-digit like home runs at all in his rookie season, except for the 1 year there. And now all of a sudden he hit 39 in the pros, which is like quadruple what he hit at any level in the minors over any season. So it's just crazy how Sometimes those ratings do come true as they get older, even if they had like kind of a weird development path. They can really still turn into a star. So that's just, I thought, a good example with that pitcher there. He could just struggle his whole time in the minors and then all of a sudden be like a 3-4 WAR starting pitcher in the majors 5 years down the line. Who knows?
Anytime anyone has an 80 changeup, you have my attention. I feel like that's like the magic pitch right there.
Yeah, that's a good point. That'd be so nice to watch in real life too. I love those good changeup pitchers. Next up, we have a Minnesota Twin on this list yet again. Another Minnesota Twin stud prospect. This one he got from Pittsburgh, I'm imagining, in the Sean Poppin trade. Yep, along with another guy that was on this list, Hino Josa. So this guy I had on this list just because he's a lefty and he throws 100 miles an hour and he had such a standout fastball. I like to love to see that profile. Just a really hard throwing lefty that gets a ton of strikeouts, but he also has that really high movement. So that combination of a flamethrower lefty, he reminds me a lot of Ryan Bruno, the guy that had a huge season this year on the LA Angels. Do you also have a really nasty fireball profile on Tercero here?
I do, and I think in the right situation, he could be like a mini, not as good, but a mini like Hater, just coming out of the pen and pitching multiple innings and shutting it down. I really like the stuff movement combo, and then the fact that he throws 100 miles per hour and has a dominant fastball and curveball. I think he could easily be ready for the majors if he wanted to now. But if I was Pete, I'd probably take him slow, just seeing where the rest of the franchise is. But I really like the profile to start maybe as a reliever, and then once the control comes along, you move him to the starting rotation. But I think he's an impact arm that any team would be lucky to have.
Yeah, I agree. Just not too many lefties that have that good of a fastball. It's just so hard to find those guys in real life. Those guys are just so valuable. You don't see those guys getting traded too easily. But with a talent like Sean Poppin, it's probably worth it for Pittsburgh to give that out. Sean Poppin's one of the best pitchers in the game. Just dominated in the bullpen. Definitely made it a worthwhile trade for both sides. I think that was a nice little trade there. So next up we have Bob Cooper. This is another Colorado Rocky. I'll ask you another 80 changeup. So you probably yet another thing you don't want to see as a division rival that has such a nice arm. I had a big jump on his stuff rating. I had a 40 at the start of the year in 2026. I had 40 current, actually 35 current stuff in the offseason. It actually ended the year at 25 last year. So just in this year alone, pretty much in the last like 12 months, I've had him go from 25 to 60 stuff, which is outrageous. That's probably the highest jump in the entire majors. He gained like 40, 35 stuff in current stuff in 1 year without the potential changing, which is interesting. It was still 60 back then. So just a crazy, crazy development. And everything else has gone up about 10 too, the movement and control current. So it's just really interesting to me how much he progressed this year. Did you have a similar scouting progression on him, or is your scout onto him a little bit earlier than mine?
Yeah, no, I had the similar. I'm kind of seeing a similar development that you saw. What I'm really impressed about is how young he is and how advanced he already is. I love the personality combo of the high work ethic, high intelligence. This is based off nothing, but like I feel like high intelligence especially makes a difference for pitchers, like where they can kind of outsmart hitters. That might be me again thinking too much into it, but I do think like having a high intelligence, especially for pitching, is a really important skill. And I think it also helps like longevity of the career too. In their way, kind of outsmart more pitching than just throwing. So I'm pretty high on Cooper. I think he's like 1 or 2 years away. He looks like he's pretty developed. Just needs to maybe get a boost of control, and then he's looking kind of like a good bullpen piece, maybe fringe starter.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I'd never heard anyone say that before about the intelligence thing. It definitely made me think quite a bit. I kind of agree with that assessment there. And it's another one of those things like we talked about with the hold where it's hard to know the true value. But I definitely, I could see that being true there with the high intelligence as a pitcher. I'll probably keep an eye out for that in the future. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, nice profile. Just like so crazy to have such high stuff with such a wipeout changeup. That changeup must be so nice to watch. Those 80 changeups would just be so cool. That Cincinnati pitcher in real life, they figure has like the best changeup in baseball. I love watching that pitching ninja on Twitter do the gifs of his changeups there. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, when Pedro in his prime was one of my favorite changeups ever. Him and like Johan Santana had some of the best changeups I've ever seen. It's so fun just seeing guys like whiff right through it.
Yeah, that's a nice pitch. I love it. So next up, Andy Mckee. Andy Mckee is on Milwaukee. What do you notice about him? Yet another 80 changeup. A bunch of guys on this list, young guys having that good of changeups is pretty cool. Also really cool that such a weird pitch combination. Fastball, changeup, and a knuckle curve. The guy throws 97 miles an hour. That knuckle curve is quite a ways away, but it's also 30. It's not like it's a 20 current. Those 20-70s are pretty iffy, but 30 is not so bad.
I have it as a 35. My guy has it as a 35, so it's even further along. Like it's just a little bit behind the changeup, and if that develops, like we're talking about a serious ace here. because high changeup and high knuckle curve are just two pitches really tough to hit. And he has 70 potential stuff, high work ethic. Like I'm a big fan. I think, it looks like he has enough stamina. I think he could be a good starter for Milwaukee.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the control, obviously, it's like every young pitcher. It always comes down to control. If that control develops, that definitely has the juice there. That 35-65 stuff from a 20-year-old is pretty nasty. Dude was a second-round pick out of high school a year and a half ago. And the guy looks like he had high work ethic, too, like you said. It's just what a nice profile. I think really keep an eye. If this guy can jump to 30 or 35 control during the year next year, he can go up to A-ball and produce pretty well. Anyone that has a 60 fastball at that age can usually just get a ton of strikeouts at those low levels. Probably get away with doing pretty well at A-ball even until that control gets better. So I think to be someone to keep an eye out, turn into one of the better prospects. Like you said, I think he definitely is one of the higher end ceilings and does have the potential to be an ace, like you said, just with how good those three pitches are and how nasty that overall profile is. Over the top knuckle curve. With a over the top profile, I mean the arm slot. So that'd be a really, really interesting player to watch. I think for sure if he was real.
I think Messina was a pitcher who had a knuckle curve who was an ace. I'm trying to think of anyone else. No one else is really coming to mind. But yeah, so it'd be really interesting to see a top guy with that kind of pitch mix.
Yeah, that's really stands out to me. I love it. All right, next up we have Dave Bernal. Dave Bernal is a closer. I didn't want to have too many relief pitchers on this list, but I just really liked this guy had so many cool high rated things. I didn't want to leave him off the list. But at that age, to have that much blue and high green in the profile, just plus all across the board. I got 70 stuff, 55 movements, 60 control, the couple 70 pitches, the fastball slider, ground ball guy, and most of all, he has such crazy 75 hold rating. Didn't let up any stolen bases the last couple seasons. I just thought this guy would be cool to tag on at the end of the list here, just as kind of like a high ceiling relief potential kind of profile.
Yeah, definitely. He looks like he's a great relief guy. Obviously, I don't see him unless he gets some crazy TCR. He could start, but right now it looks like he has two pitches, but two elite pitches coming out of the bullpen, holding runners too. This is a guy who you can come in at any time and just shut the door. Real nice pickup. Who did KC give up to get him?
Oh, that's a good question. There's a trade here.
Oh, Daniel Tillo. Okay, that was a good trade. Yeah.
Yeah, Ben Hendershoot's a pretty nice talent too. KC has both those guys now. Hendershoot was actually one of my, I think I remember 2 high school arm in that entire draft. That guy had like an insane 6-pitch profile. So the other guy involved in that trade. So it's pretty interesting. KC's really collecting a lot of that young talent through their rebuild. Bernal and Hendershoot both look pretty nice here. I love that guy's profile. Next up, I have Daniel Bustos. Love the name Bustos. Daniel Bustos has a starting pitcher profile. The dude's got a 75 changeup. Yet another young pitcher on this list with a high changeup. A really good control profile. 65 control I got on him, and a couple 55 potentials in the other 2 categories. And another finesse guy. Kind of bad mentals, which is why he's probably a little bit lower in this list than what his ceiling would indicate, based on the fact that 55, 55, 65 ceiling at 19 years old is pretty nasty. So he was a scouting discovery in 2023. Had a couple years in the complex there, and then he came up to the minors this year and looks like he has a little bit of offense. He plays a 2-way guy, but probably not much of a prospect hitting wise. Kind of like this guy's profile though, and just really similar to a lot of those other guys we talked about. 3 pitches with that changeup kind of being a standout pitch, but really advanced currents for his age.
Yeah, he definitely looks like very advanced. It could be very good. Me personally, I'd be turned off by the personality, especially that young as a pitcher. There's just too many variables. Someone else can develop him. I noticed, you mentioned he has kind of a bat. Do you think that affects his development as a pitcher, that he's playing some third base and he's not focusing solely on pitching, especially with his hitting being nothing to sneeze at? Do you know how that impacts it, or is that not make a change at all?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Like we've talked about that in the past a little bit with your guys in the chat. I remember you had a couple 2-way players, and I think I've just seen enough 2-way guys develop even without playing in a position. I think it's in real life. I think it would be a big factor, but I don't think the game really values it as much as you'd think. I've noticed a bunch of guys that just like were have like 30, 50 ratings and all the hitting stuff, and guys just solely use them as a pitcher for like 3 years. And then all of a sudden they just use them as a 2-way guy when they had like a TCR or something, and their current hitting ratings go up like 20 points without even having an at bat from like rookie ball to AAA, and all of a sudden they can hit at the major league level. So I think the game is just more of like statistical thing, and it doesn't quite factor in the experience too much. So I don't think it really affects the two-way playing thing, but I have heard a lot of people say that they think the injuries go way up when they let a guy two-way play. So I think that's more of the question, a lot more injury risk. But I don't know. Like I played Ohtani two ways all season this year, and he was pretty nasty at both. As a development thing, yeah, it's like you said, a lot of variables too. I really don't know. I think anytime a guy can play both in the future, I'll just play them both. I don't think I ever want to have him just doing one thing, but I don't know. I could be totally wrong on that. It may be strongly affecting it. That's yet another thing. It's kind of hard to kind of quantify into the value of the game. But I have noticed a bunch of guys, I will say, that just didn't hit at all in the minors, and all of a sudden they just got a huge hitting jump even without playing there at all. So like you have the perfect example of that. You're Christian Robinson?
No, it was Christian Moore.
Christian Moore, yeah.
I developed him as a pitcher for a while, then one day he was a better hitter.
Yeah, so I think it's just kind of random sometimes in the game, but I think this guy definitely looks like more of a pitcher for me, that's for sure. Next up, we have Dan Viveros, yet another reliever. I just wanted a second reliever on this list because it's kind of the same profile as the KC guy. I thought this guy was a little too nasty to leave off this list, especially the fact that he is a lefty. A really, really cool profile that has a lot of green.
Yeah, this is another guy who looks like he's pretty close to the majors. I'd maybe start him in Double-A, see how that goes. If he dominates quickly in Triple-A, and the next thing you know, he might be up by like August or September. But he looks like just another guy you could put in the end of the bullpen, maybe like an Andrew Miller type role, and just shut down the door against like the best hitters or key spots. Especially with that 80 potential slider coming from the left side, that looks pretty fucking nasty. He's a little short, but it still looks pretty nasty.
Yeah, I love how he has a 65 stamina. Like he only has 2 pitches, but man, that guy come out of the bullpen 3-4 days a week in the pros in a couple seasons. Yeah, that recovery.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I like that profile cut away. And I have one more guy on the list. This guy is very probably the lowest current floor on the list right now, but the ceiling is very high. So I just wanted to kind of tag him on at the end here because there isn't a lot of teenage players in baseball and TLG with this profile. I have Ramon Araya for Texas, another Texas Ranger on this list. The dude only has a 20 current changeup, so he has a lot of relief pitch potential. Maybe will never be a starter with only those 2 pitches. I don't really consider a 20 current a third pitch, but it does have a 70, so it's something to keep an eye out for that if it goes up. But the guy just is a lefty that's 6'4", that throws hard and has crazy control. So I just thought definitely a pretty high ceiling guy here. I thought it'd be worth like a number 10 spot on this list.
Definitely. And what is drawing to me him is his personality. It's very interesting. He has a low leader adaptability and work ethic, but then his personality says he's a quick learner. So maybe he has a high intelligence. So I could really see it going either way with him. He's from Sandwich, Mass, which is like around Cape Cod. So he's probably definitely like a hardworking kid. He looks like a pretty good reliever potentially, and maybe you get some TCR and becomes a starter. I trust Tyler too. So like both Tylers I trust they're going to develop their player as well. So like if it doesn't work out, it's not from a lack of trying.
Yeah, it's definitely a pretty cool profile. I just think, like you said, a TCR would make him a monster if he could get a legitimate third pitch or even develop that changeup and have 4. But I think I just think it's interesting, his profile. I didn't notice the mentals being so bad at the draft. I don't remember if they were that low. I'll have to pull up my old draft profile. But I do remember him and my guy I took in the first round were the top 2 high school arms I had. Araya just had such a crazy ceiling with that like 65, 70 control. His movement, his currents were about 25 at the draft. So just a few months later, a couple of them gone up to 30. So I think he had 25 stuff back before the draft there and 25 movement. So definitely improved a little bit throughout the year. That's an interesting profile. But it's 3 pitches that are like 70s at the age of 18 as a lefty, 70 control. There's just only 1 or 2 guys in the world that have that kind of profiles. Just thought that was kind of interesting. Anyways, that's the end of our list here. I think that was a lot of fun to kind of learn about some of the young superstars. I'm sure I missed a bunch. I didn't put a ton of time in the list. I pretty much made a filter and just kind of sorted by like the top rated things. So I probably missed some like good defensive middle infielders and rangy guys that didn't have such standout tools on their bats, that 60 stuff that stood out on the list. So I'm sure I missed a bunch of guys, but I thought it would just be fun. I'm just going over those top guys, especially like your dude Adrian Leduc and the KC guy and the Washington guys, and just some of those really high-end teenagers I think could be real superstars in the future. That's what I love about TLG, is just the development and seeing how those guys turn out. So I thought it'd be a fun episode if anyone watched this long to stick around and just kind of see some of those top prospects in baseball. I love reading about those in real life, like the fan graphs. So thank you very much for joining us, Gamma. That was a lot of fun. I know you're a prospect guy like me, so we both enjoy talking about those young stars. And I'm sure in the future we'll kind of look back on this list and see which guys developed and which guys didn't. So kind of have it saved under the history in case you want to look back in the year like 2029 TLG and kind of remember about which guys, like how they were rated at the time. So I think that'll be kind of fun too.
Oh, thank you, and thank you for having me. I had a blast. Definitely always down to talk under 21 talent any way you want to. I know you're a big fan of that, so I look forward to many more discussions offline about 21 and under talent.
All right. Cheers, buddy.